All right, greetings everyone. Greetings. Good morning, grand rising, and all those beautiful ways that we can greet each other. Salam alaikum to all my Islamic family, and peace be upon you to anybody who doesn't know that language. And shalom to all of my Jewish folks out there. And again, like I said, however you greet your, your friends, your family, I just want to give you one of the best greetings possible that I could think of. And that's always the greetings of peace. And so thank you for tapping in with me today. I'm Duran Black, and I just got a couple things, man. I know it's been a long, crazy week. And I just had a couple things that I wanted to share today. I know that everybody, well, at least for myself, let me say for myself, it feels like I'm living in a different world. But it's a beautiful thing, in my opinion. We and Donald Trump, especially President Trump, especially, yes, 47. He's already won. You can wrap it up. You can forget about anybody else. Donald Trump has won the election. I mean, that's one of the things that I want to talk about today. Of course, I got my own campaign going myself, and so that is another thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to update everyone about what's going on in my campaign. I'm running for the Missouri State Senate here in the great state of Missouri. We just had the Republican National Convention, and I saw all of my true grassroots Trump supporters or delegates up there. When the roll call came, man, I forget the young lady's name, but she did a great job. She's a state representative down in the southern parts of Missouri, so she did a fantastic job. It's not too much that you need to do with the roll call, I guess. This was my first time watching the complete convention for the Republican Party, and it was amazing. Like I said, I think that we live in a completely different world. The world that I was thinking about, or the world that I was planning on being in a week from today, is not the one that we're living in. I promise you. And one of the reasons why I say that, because that incidents are, very tragic and unfortunate incidents. If you don't know, Corey Compentor is a gentleman who passed away, who died saving his family in Butler, Pennsylvania. So keep his family, and him in your prayers, because he made the ultimate sacrifice. So definitely want to make sure that we don't forget about Corey Compentor. But up until Saturday, right? I know people had a lot of questions about President Trump and I myself too. Let me, as a matter of fact, let me rewind it all the way back, because I do have to remind myself, this whole social media stuff and this whole new world, you never know who's watching, right? And so let me just give you a little bit of who I am and what I've been through, and why I have a completely different outlook and perspective of Donald J. Trump and how that evolved, right? So 2016, I was one of those folks working on the Bernie Sanders campaign. I would not call myself a Bernie bro, nowhere near, not by far. But in 2016, again, it was a different world. In 2016, as a matter of fact, in 2015, Bernie Sanders came to Kansas City for the first time. A good friend of mine, she was like, hey, I know this cool dude. He is kind of radical. He's from Vermont. He's a senator. He's running for office because, of course, she had knew me, and she had known, that I had, man, totally had become just fed up, to keep it clean with the Democratic Party or Democratic politics. I didn't want to vote for Barack Obama 2 times, but I did. The second time around, I was a Ron Paul guy. I literally was supporting Ron Paul. I was, in the Fed, man. We need to audit the Fed, and that has never left me. And it wasn't even Ron Paul that, got me to see things in a different, well, it was Ron Paul, got me to see things in a different perspective in one way, but just the amount of lies, right? If you didn't get a chance to watch the Republican National Convention, well, JD Vance is, or if you haven't been, hip to the news, JD Vance is now the vice president nominee for the Republican Party, chosen by Donald Trump. And JD has had a similar path as I, JD served in the Marines. I served in the Navy, and I'm a little bit older than JD, but I hear, I read Hillbilly Elegy, and I hear that JD had the same experience, being in the military, and he actually served in Iraq. I was in the Navy, so we just give people boat rides or rides on the ship. But it's a great ride. You got some of the best food, and shout out to my son who's actually in boot camp right now as we speak. Yes, but anyway, so JD, realized that the Iraq war was a sham, and I think that he was I don't know if he was a supporter of Bernie Sanders, but he realized that something wasn't right with the Iraq war. And then here we have a situation where Barack Obama, says that he's going to end these wars, says he's going to close down Guantanamo Bay, and says all these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things, just to get in office. Remember that Hillary Clinton was kicking Barack's butt, but all of a sudden, the powers that be thought that maybe it's a better option to go with the new guy on the block. I wasn't privy to that information, but Barack did give a speech that moved me. I was very moved when he said that he was going to be the president of the United States, and he was, was it going to be the black president? Was it going to be the white president? None of those things. Who knew that he was going to be the globalist president? I wasn't able to put those things together. I wasn't what they call politically sophisticated enough to understand some of the words that this guy is saying. It's a little funny. Mr. Obama, very funny. But I remember in 2008 very clearly when my father had asked me, he said, you're not going to take the opportunity to vote for the first, black president of your lifetime. And I'm like, no, for what? I don't know this guy. But like I said, he gave the speech. And when he said that he was going to be president for the United States of America, and I looked at him, and I think a lot of people looked at him as a unifying entity. They thought that, Barack would bring people together. And I guess for a brief moment, you can say that. And then after that, he became completely polarizing. Because remember, that's when we saw the rise of the Tea Party movement. Now, I didn't understand the Tea Party movement at that time. I knew it had something to do with, maybe some guys getting upset, they were rich or whatever, elitists and all these different things. I like, and they were getting mad at the average day American. So, I saw I think his name is Rick Santorum. He was a CNBC analyst when they used to have the Chicago Board of the Chicago Board of Trade or the Mercantile Exchange up there in Chicago. I seen him, when he was like, we're gonna start a tea party. Hey, Mr. Obama, and got everybody riled up. And so next thing that you hear of these people from the libertarian movement at that time, starting to take major swings at the Obama administration. And I didn't, and again, I was a novice. I was young. Matter of fact, I wasn't even a novice. I didn't even, the only reason, but again, the only reason why I even paid attention to politics at that time, because of that very thing. I wanted to be able to defend my vote for Barack Obama. So here I am. I vote for Barack in 2008. Well, anyone who takes just a basic economics class, and I'm talking about basic economics 101, you'll come familiar with a few equations, but they're very basic. I mean, it's like addition almost. And one of the things that you realize is that, oh, you mean the government creates its own money? Or at least we do, in the United States. That's not the case for everybody around the world. But yes, in the United States, we have what they call a sovereign fiat currency. And so by that time, I had already went through one crash, which was the .com crash. I know a lot of you youngsters, barely can, even remember, what it was like when people were doing this, swag surf or whatever. So I definitely don't expect you to remember what the .com crisis was like. But yeah, everybody was going crazy over the .com everything. The only thing that you had to put on the end of your thing was .com, and you was making money. It was so much fraud going on, so much stealing going on. Remember, it was a company named Enron. Oh my God. If you have not heard what Enron has done, then you need to go check out that era. That it was a wild, era for the tech world, right? It's when the tech world got the first in, right? And so the .com bubble, a lot of people got called to account. See, at least George Bush was doing that. He was, or there were people in his administration that were trying to call people to account for some of the shenanigans that went on in the .com crisis, because guess what? People went to jail. So that's one of the things that has to happen in an economic system that is supposed to be free market competition. Not this ridiculousness of certain people are protected, certain people become too big to fail. Remember, that's an Obama administration thing that they did. Eric Holder, was the guy that said, "Oh, the banks are too big to fail." But yet and still, they picked and they chose again who they would allow to fall, because there was a hedge fund, or not a hedge fund, but a partnership, Bear Stearns, one of those big Wall Street deals that they did decide to pull the plug on Bear Stearns, let it fall. So they didn't necessarily care about those particular people who lost their jobs and their families who were ruined, while they chose to allow others to succeed. But they're too big to fail. We have to do these things called bailouts, right? Which is just basically giving a whole bunch of money that you can do. Remember, because you're the federal government, right? You can just literally give a whole bunch of money to a whole bunch of people and say that's it, it's done with, right? And especially if you're the one that's making and dictating and calling the shots and making the rules, right? It becomes pretty easy. It becomes pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of a pen. There was a book written by an esteemed professor, in my opinion. His name is William Black, no relation. And I studied under William Black at UMKC, one of the best classes. Shout out to the rules. One of the best classes that I have ever participated in. And it was law and economics, right? And William Black wrote the book. Again, the best way to rob a bank is to do what? Is to own it. I'll say it again. The book is called The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own It. And William Black had demonstrated through his scholarship and actually through his job, he was a regulator at one point. And so he actually worked for the federal government, and he actually saw how these things called I forget the term that he had for it. It's man, it skips my mind right now. But go look it up. Go check it out. William Black wrote the book. The best way to rob a bank is to own one. And so again, back in the Obama days, right? I knew that something wasn't right about Obama, because when it came to bailing out the banks, he was all for it. When it came to universal health care, he was all for it. When it came to gays and lesbians being able to marry and all those things, he was all for it. But when it came to trying to keep people, just average people, right, in their homes because of an overinflated market, in a market that actually got totally out of whack, he wasn't for it. And actually, at one point, I think he had even said, we're running out of money. Now, again, like I said, if you take a basic economics class, economics 101, you find out that the United States has its own sovereign currency called the dollar. And that this dollar, right, is actually produced, according to Alan Greenspan, with this actual fact, is actually just produced with a press of a button. There's no printing that needs to go on. There is no helicopter that comes out and just sprinkles the money everywhere, even though we have had ways where that was an operative function as well. But anyway, but yeah, you just press a button. So when Obama said to the reporter at that time that we've ran out of money, I just knew it was a lie. Now, don't get me wrong. It took a long, long time for me to realize that just because you can do it, don't mean that you necessarily should do it. And since you can do it, it probably comes with some responsibilities and some checks and balances that should be in place, because you realize that one of the most effective ways to ruin any country, any nation, is to destroy the currency. And Lord have mercy, we literally put in place a situation where the devaluation of our currency has become an issue. And I know sometimes it's difficult for, because it's difficult for me, because these are not first or second, sometimes or even third degree consequences. There's a fourth, fifth degree consequences. And, if you're not attuned to thinking that far down the line, then, you could be setting yourself up. It's like going 100 miles per hour, right? And there's a cliff on the distance, right, over the horizon that you can't see, and you don't have any brakes, but you keep on hitting that thing because you want to go faster, and you want to get that adrenaline, I guess, or that rush. But it becomes fatal at one point. And so when Obama said that we were running out of money, I was like, oh my God, man, this guy has just failed to, give recognition to one of the most, basic, economic, ideas, right? I mean, I know this stuff. And so that was one of the first times that I knew that the guy was, not all the way honest about, the conditions and the circumstances of what the country might be. And then all of a sudden we saw, what did he say? He sent the surge, right? He was trying to end the war by sending more troops in, and Guantanamo Bay was never closed. As a matter of fact, it was under the Obama administration where a completely new type of technology of warfare was developed with the drones. Obama was droning the hell out of folks, man. And so that's when I started to see, man, that yeah, this guy isn't necessarily for the American people like he claims, and that we might need to think about, some different directions. And I was willing to go. I was willing to go. I wasn't latched to the man's train in the first place. So I was already looking for my grippers, trying to figure out how in the heck do we get out of this situation. And one of the first persons that presented themselves at that particular time back in 2012 was Ron Paul. And Ron Paul was like, man, nah, man, these crazy wars have gone crazy. Oh, you know who else was in those days, really calling things out and really trying to wake people up. And I don't give a damn what you might say about him. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes. If you want to call me crazy, go ahead, call me crazy. I've been in several mental institutions, and I've had all kinds of things in my life, that I can't deal with it sometimes, and I have to make sure that I take care of my own mental health, in which that mostly means staying away from folks who are dishonest, backbiting, unloyal, who have no principles, who have no morals, who disrespect higher powers and higher authorities, and who thinks that the greatest way to get something done is just to lie to somebody. So I typically stay away from those things. Those are what are called my triggers. Now, I know everybody has their own triggers, but those are my triggers. So don't lie to me. Don't don't try to deceive me. Don't try to dictate for me. Don't try to placate me, and don't try to do those other little, backhanded, what I consider to be antisocial things that no one really appreciates. And I'm typically a nice, happy, get along, or cheerful type of guy, right? But like I said, I started to see that in 2012, people like Ron Paul were calling for the Fed to be in. Oh, Alex Jones. That's who else I wanted to say. That's who else was out there saying things that were actually just way ahead of their time. But everyone wants to call Alex what they want to call him, and I know Alex has definitely made some mistakes before. I don't know Alex Jones personally, but one of the things that I can say is that I listened to Alex Jones, and Alex Jones was right about a good number of things. Let you do your own research, go down your own rabbit holes. You definitely have to figure out ways to get to the truth that is not necessarily always out there up in front. And so you might have to, use a very, very solid spiritual grounding, to help you to be the measure through some of those things that might be confusing, might be kind of disturbing to you, but you have to see it. You have to see it, because if you don't see it, right, then you're living in an illusion. And so, again, that's one of the reasons why I was looking for people like Ron Paul, and Ron Paul became, very, very, very interesting to me, because Ron Paul used to promote these different theories of economics, right? Austrian economics, for one, is one of the theories that he believed was a more sound understanding of development of government policy. And, I won't necessarily get into Austrian economics here, but when I just started to break down, right, just what I had seen over my period of time of just, watching politics, watching Obama. Like I said, he was in office for 8 years. And so through that period of time, you see a whole lot. You should learn a whole lot. And I did. I was paying attention, and I was seeing some things that were just not adding up. Now, mind you, I also started to take a look around my own environment. I was in 2012. I was back in the inner city. Had lived in the suburbs for a little bit. I was working at Ford, but I was back in the inner city, and my son was about six or 7 years old at that time. I'm co-parenting with him, him and his mother. We never got married, but we're co-parenting. We're doing the best that we can. I'm not paying child support or anything like that. And, we're doing the best that we can to raise our son. He's going to a pretty decent school, or at least I thought it was the decent school at that time. Thank God I had the blessing of my aunt being a preschool or daycare provider. She had her own daycare facility, so my son got to spend time, around kids and around family, as he was getting ready to go into elementary and all those things. So it was a pretty decent, at least from where I started out and to where I ended up being at that time, I was pretty comfortable. But when you hit that type of comfort, something should agitate you, right? Something should tell you that, you might not necessarily be doing every single thing that you can do, and you have to make a decision. You have to say, am I just gonna sit here and be comfortable, or am I gonna try to press the limit a little bit? And I told myself, well, it was one particular time where my son had he was getting into a little scuffle with some kids, and I said, I need to do more, because I just have one son. Like I said, he's in the Navy right now, and shout out to Dravius for doing his thing, man, serving his country. And so I was like, I need to do more. And so I started to figure out different ways that I could, be active in the community and be more involved. And the next thing I'm having a conversation with my father, and a conversation with a gentleman that I never met in my life. And we're talking about politics. And, again, I was fairly young. I was younger at that time. I was around late 20s. And so my father and this gentleman had both asked me, hey, man, when are you going to try your hat in politics? When are you going to have to try your hat in politics? Now, mind you, I hadn't graduated from college. I had just been, a diligent student who had, basically committed himself to self-study. I read all kinds of books. I came across this guy named Charlie Munger, who said, man, yeah, you don't have to go to school to be educated. You don't have to go to school to have knowledge and have wisdom, but you do need tools. You do need to know how to think, right? And so I came across a book. It's called How to Read a Book, right? By Mortimer. I think it's Mortimer. Oh, man, I can't forget his name right now. But anyway, in basically the book of How to Read a Book demonstrated how you can have some of the greatest mentors in the history of mankind if you know how to break down a book and get from that book what you need from it, and not just get from the book what you need from it, but maybe write a little bit, write an essay about it, some of these basic, some fundamental things that you do in school. So I used to do those things to help myself out, to improve myself, because I wanted to think better, because I realized when I was young, one of the reasons that I got into some of the things that I did is because I could turn off the thinking mechanism and just act, right? That doesn't necessarily help you out with longevity. And so I had thought that I wasn't ready for politics. I wasn't ready for politics. I maybe should wait till I'm a little older. And, I had the same conversation with two different people, and I took it as a word from the Almighty, or as a sign from the Almighty that, hey, there have people who, I guess, have done less, but yet and still have been successful in politics. And we know this is the case to be true. I mean, some people have never even had a regular job, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be bad in politics or bad in or bad in elected office or in government. It just means that their perspective is probably different than yours if you have been someone who has had to, fend for themselves, who has had to, learn the lessons of survival, right? Because politics it can be kind of a cushy type thing. You get people to come to you. You don't have to go to nobody. You are in a comfortable environment. You're not picking up hard tools or whatever. And it's like the most that you really have to do is be a person that's going to stand up on your word. And remember, that's one of the reasons why I said that Donald Trump has already won the election, because what else can this man do to demonstrate that he is the truth, right? And I'm not saying that he walks on water or nothing silly like that, but he is a real man who has a real vision and who is willing to die for what he stands on. Now, can the other side say that? Is the other side even capable of saying that? No, they're not. And here's the sad state. Here's the sad state. You need to take, and please, come on. I'm a Republican. If you're a Republican, this is what you need to do. If you come across someone who you love, who you care for, and you have concern for, right? Don't get upset at them if they say that they're Democrat or they're voting Democrat. Just ask them, right? Ask them, do you believe that the person at the top of the ticket is capable and is in a state of doing anything for you, right, that you basically can't do for yourself? Right? Just make it make sense like that. And then, depending on how they answer, who's basically depending on how much time you should spend with them, you should probably ask them, okay, now compare all the other people who are on that side of the spectrum, to the guy at the top. And do they all kind of seem to like fall in line with each other? I know they do in my city. I'm not sure who's watching, who's paying attention, but I know that they do in my city. Incompetent, deceptive, incompetent but deceptive. I mean, that's where I can start at that. Unpatriotic, uncommitted, and it literally goes on and on and on. But guess what? I come to find out it's part of their platform. They have no religion in their platform. They have no recognition of families in their platform. They have no recognition of how it is that you can produce wealth for you and your family. They don't have that in their platform. And the Republican platform is make America safe again, make America wealthy again, and make America great again. That's yes, MAGA is in the platform now. And if anybody has a problem with that, just go outside and ask yourself, where do you live? How could you be offended with that? To make your home better, to make your community better, to build wealth for you and your family for hopefully for generations. These things are instilled now within the platform of the Republican Party. Now, everybody is not perfect, right? But the ideas, man, the ideas are very, very important. Because it's the ideas, right? Hence the reason why, people take it very offensive when they, think that, MAGA is a cult of Trump. No, MAGA is not a cult of Trump. MAGA is not a cult. If, again, make America great again. Why would anybody be against that who is actually American? Those were the ideas come into play. Check the ideas. And so I didn't get an opportunity because I don't have as much time as I would like to get in some of the things. But again, that's why you got to keep following. Keep following. You got to like. You got to share. You can send me an email. Send me a comment. Go to the website, dblack4mo.org. Make a small contribution. Send a line. Drop a line in the comments. We can engage with each other, right? This is what I am here to do. This is what I have set myself out to do. And so let's do it, right? Nobody's going to get hurt. Maybe. I'm not going to be the one that's trying to hurt anybody. But at the same time, I understand that there is a cost for everything. You see, like I said, I'm one of those economists, right? Or those economic type guys. I studied economics in school, and the first rule of economics is what? Scarcity, right? But in politics, what would they tell you? Forget the first rule of economics. So thank you, all of you who are tuned in. Like I said, man, please like, share. We are in a tremendous battle, and I'm happy to fight it, and I'm happy to support, and I'm happy to stand on the things and the principles that I stand on. Shout out and salute, to Donald Trump. Shout out to my wife. Shout out to my son. And peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you.